Have you ever seen something so bizarre, so out of place that you questioned if it was even real, or if your brain was just playing tricks on you? Picture an old tractor crawling across the snow like a mini tank, or a tiny three-wheeled car skidding across a frozen field like it's on a suicide mission. Now go one step further. Imagine a vehicle with giant screws instead of wheels, literally drilling its way over the ice. Sounds like a mechanical nightmare, right? But all of these machines actually existed. What's even crazier is that they weren't built to impress. They were designed to solve real problems in places where nothing else works. Where engines freeze, snow swallows tires, and logic simply breaks down in the cold. And yet, they moved, grinding, sliding, rattling, or sometimes just barely crawling. These strange machines kept going. Some were ugly, slow, awkward, but brilliant in their weirdness. You've probably never heard of most of them, and some might seem like urban legends, but they were real. Built by stubborn engineers, soldiers, farmers, and explorers who took on the impossible with machines that looked impossible. Ready to see the most outrageous snow machines to ever roam the frozen world? Stick around till the end, because the last one on this list will blow your mind. Oliver HG68 Crawler, 1940s. At first glance, the Oliver HG68 just looks like a regular old farm tractor, something you'd expect to see plowing a wheat field in the 1940s. But slap some tracks on the back and drop it into a frozen landscape, and suddenly it turns into a rugged little snow tank. Built by the Oliver Corporation in the United States, the HG68 was originally designed for agriculture, but it gained a second life in colder climates. Farmers and workers in snowy areas adapted it with tracks and custom enclosures to help it survive the deep freeze. It ran on a reliable 4-cylindered gasoline engine, with just over 3 liters of displacement and around 40 horsepower. Not fast, but plenty of power to tow light loads, push snow, and keep moving where other vehicles stalled out. Visually, it had a squat, wide stance, kind of like a bulldog in tractor form. Its metal tracks clanked through the snow with a gritty, rhythmic sound. Slow but unstoppable, it wasn't flashy, but it always got the job done. These tractors were used in rural winter jobs across the northern US and Canada, from trail clearing to equipment hauling. Some even served on military bases as light-duty support vehicles. Today, collectors and vintage tractor lovers still keep a few HG68s running, and believe it or not, some people even installed kerosene heaters and wooden cabins to make them more comfortable in the cold. Think that was odd? Hold on. The next machine was built for deep snow and had a military body that looked straight out of a frozen battlefield. Alice Chalmers M7 Snow Tractor, 1944. Now imagine this. A military-grade tractor with a stretched-out body, rubber tracks, and a closed cabin built for snow. The Alice Chalmers M7 Snow Tractor looked like part tank, part sci-fi prototype, and it had a mission straight from the Arctic. Built in 1944 in the United States, the M7 was created during World War II to help U.S. troops operate in brutally cold environments like the Arctic and mountainous snow zones. Regular trucks and Jeeps couldn't handle those conditions, so this beast was their winter solution, powered by a 6-cylinder gasoline engine producing around 90 horsepower. It was strong enough to tow sleds, equipment, and even small artillery over snow and ice. But what really stood out was its fully enclosed, heated cabin, a rare luxury for a military vehicle of its time. When you saw the M7 cruising through the snow, it looked like a spaceship from the 1940s. Its wide tracks chewed through the terrain with a low, deep growl, and it had a futuristic profile that made people stop and stare. The N7 served in Arctic supply missions, search and rescue operations, and base construction projects in remote cold zones. It was a mechanical mule for the military, slow, strong, and incredibly reliable. Culturally, the N7 became a rare sight after the war, but some units were sold to civilians in Alaska and repurposed for emergency transport in snow-covered towns. The crazy part? A few of those are still running. That was a tank-like snow tractor. Now get ready for something much smaller, lighter, and weirder. And yes, someone actually tried to drive it through the snow. Reliant Rugged Robin, 1970s. Okay, get this. Someone once decided to take a three-wheeled British city car, one known for tipping over in tight turns, and send it out into deep snow. That's how the Reliant Rugged Robin became one of the most absurd snow vehicles ever attempted. Originally launched in the 1970s, the Reliant Robin was designed to be cheap, light, and fuel efficient. It had a 750cc four-cylinder engine, weighed under 500 kilograms, and made about 40 horsepower. But its most famous feature, or flaw, was its three-wheel layout with just one wheel in the front. Snow enthusiasts and backyard inventors thought, why not turn this into a snowmobile? So they replaced the rear wheels with tracks, added skis up front, and created a snow-going Robin that looked more like a toy than a vehicle. It was tiny, top-heavy, and hilariously unstable. But somehow, it actually moved. The Rugged Robin was seen at ski resorts, remote villages, and even in winter emergencies where it was the only option available. Some rural communities even embraced it as a symbol of resilience, a little three-wheeled oddball that refused to quit. The funny part? A few still survive today in private collections and are treated like mechanical legends. Ready for something even weirder? The next machine looks like a moonlander, but was built for Arctic rescue. Enjoying this trip through the weirdest snow machines ever built? Smash that like button to support the channel. It helps us bring you more rare content like this. Rolon, 1950s. Now picture a massive truck with tires so big and soft, they look like balloons on the verge of popping. But they don't pop, they float. That's the magic of the Rolon, a snow machine built on soft, low-pressure tires that glide across snow like pillows. Invented in the United States in the 1950s, the Rolon used huge flexible tires to spread out the vehicle's weight. Inspired by Inuit snowshoes, this innovation let it travel across deep snow, swamps, and even frozen tundra without sinking. Most Rolons were based on regular trucks, modified with heavy-duty suspension and oversized tires, powered by V8 engines producing 150 to 200 horsepower. They hauled fuel, supplies, and people to places where roads simply didn't exist. The Rolon didn't roar across the snow, it glided. The sound was muffled, the ride was oddly smooth, and the whole thing looked like an elephant balancing on cushions. Used heavily in Arctic oil exploration, especially in Alaska and northern Canada, it became the backbone of cold region logistics. The strange part? Even with their squishy tires, these trucks could survive heavy impacts, ice chunks, and brutal winter terrain. Still in limited use today, the Rolon inspired dozens of modern low-pressure off-road vehicles around the world. The next one? It looks like an airplane, but it never leaves the ground. Snowplane, 1930s to 1960s. Imagine a vehicle with a propeller in the back, skis instead of wheels, and a lightweight body made to skim over frozen lakes at high speed. Sounds like a plane that forgot its wings, right? That's the Snowplane, also known as the ice air sled, one of the strangest and most dangerous snowcrafts ever built. These machines first appeared in the 1930s, mostly in Canada and rural areas of the US, where winters were so brutal that even dog sleds struggled. The goal was simple: create a vehicle that didn't need roads, treads, or traction, just wind and ice. Most snowplanes were powered by airplane or car engines in the rear, with 50 to 100 horsepower. Built from wood or light metal and riding on 3 or 4 skis, they could glide at speeds of 50 to 60 kilometers per hour, and sometimes even faster, depending on ice conditions. They look terrifying, with a giant spinning propeller behind you and no real brakes. The ride was loud, shaky, and constantly on the edge of disaster. Turning was tricky, stopping was worse, but they worked. Snowplanes were used by rural doctors, police, mail carriers, and emergency workers. They delivered medicine, transported patients, and connected remote towns cut off by snowstorms. But they were dangerous. A thin patch of ice or an unexpected gust of wind could send them tumbling. Yet they became so popular that winter snowplane races were actually a thing in parts of Canada. Ready for something even more extreme? The next one was a rescue craft that could swim and drive on snow, all while looking like an Arctic escape pod. Tracked amphibious evacuation craft, 1980s. What if you combined a boat, a tractor, and a tank, and then sent it into freezing water and thin ice? That's basically the tracked amphibious evacuation craft. One of the weirdest and most functional vehicles ever made for cold weather rescue. Developed in the 1980s, these machines were built to save lives in places where the ice was too thin for trucks, but too frozen for boats. The solution? A sealed floating body, wide tracks, and a powerful engine that could move through slush, snow, or open water. They typically used diesel engines with 4 or 6 cylinders, generating between 120 and 180 horsepower. Enough strength to push through snowbanks or break thin ice while carrying passengers, stretchers, and emergency supplies. The craft looked like a flattened spaceship, creeping across the snow while steam poured from its engine vents. Inside, it had heaters, bench seats, rescue gear, and everything you'd need for survival in the middle of nowhere. These were used in the Siberian wilderness, northern Canada, and polar research stations in Europe. They were perfect for transporting teams across treacherous terrain where helicopters couldn't land and snowmobiles couldn't float. The weird part? In Scandinavia, they became known as ice capsules because they looked like escape pods from sci-fi movies. Still in use today in some remote zones, the amphibious crawler remains a niche, life-saving machine. Up next, a vehicle that looks like a plane, slides like a sled, and served in war zones. If you're loving these forgotten snow contraptions as much as we are, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell, because what's coming next is even crazier. Snowmobile Aerosi, 1940s Soviet Union. When temperatures in the Soviet Union dropped low enough to kill engines and stall tanks, someone had a wild idea. Put a giant propeller on the back of a sled. That's how the Aerosi was born, a deadly mix of airplane parts and military desperation. First used in the 1930s and widely deployed during World War II, the Aerosi was designed for frozen battlefields, snowy patrols, and deep front supply runs. It used wooden skis and a rear-mounted propeller driven by an aircraft engine. The most common models ran on 5-cylinder radial engines with around 110 horsepower. They were light, fast, and noisy, reaching 50 or even 60 kilometers per hour over compact snow or frozen lakes. They looked like a cross between a boat, a sled, and a fan boat. The spinning propeller blasted snow behind it, and the open cockpit exposed the driver to wind and ice. Some versions were even armed with machine guns. Soldiers had a love-hate relationship with the Aerosi. It was fast and mobile, but extremely dangerous. One wrong move and it would flip, skid off a cliff, or break through the ice. Today, these oddball machines are displayed in museums across Russia and admired by engineers who respect their ingenuity and their insanity. Still not the strangest? Wait till you meet the little snow hamster with surprising power. Hamac, modern prototype Russia. Small, square, and completely ridiculous looking, the Hamac, or hamster in Russian, is an ultra-compact snow crawler designed to get one person through deep snow without roads, treads, or style. Created by Russian inventors like Alexei Baikov, the Hamac is a DIY snow machine that looks like a toolbox on tracks. It's just big enough for one rider to sit on top, grab the handlebars, and take off into the snow like a fearless backyard engineer. It uses a 1-cylinder gas engine, usually between 6 and 10 horsepower. It sounds like a snowblower and moves like a cross between a scooter and a tank. It weighs just over 100 kilograms, but it can climb, pull, and survive in snowfields where bigger vehicles stall. Hunters, ice fishers, and remote villagers in Russia actually use it. Some have even added lights, suspension upgrades, and cozy seat pads to make their Hamac feel like a snow scooter. The fun part? People race them, customize them, and treat them like snow pets. They may be slow and awkward, but they go anywhere, and they're tough. You think that's weird? Nothing, and I mean nothing, compares to what comes next. A snow machine that moves using screws. Yes, actual metal screws. Schneckah, 1970s Soviet Union. Forget wheels. Forget skis. Forget tracks. The Schneckah used 2 giant rotating screws to drill its way across snow, mud, and frozen swamps, like a steel worm crawling through the earth. Built in the 1970s in the Soviet Union, the Schneckah was a screw-propelled vehicle meant to go where nothing else could. It used 2 massive cylinders, each wrapped in spiral flanges, rotating in opposite directions to push the machine forward. Power came from 4-cylinder gasoline engines producing between 100 and 120 horsepower, enough to move its 2-ton metal body across snow, ice, or even shallow water. When it moved, it crushed snow beneath it and left a spiraling trail behind. It was loud, awkward, and hard to steer, but it worked. You could literally hear the metal drilling its way through the landscape. These were tested in the Russian Arctic and Siberia for military and scientific missions. But because of their size, noise, and complexity, they never made it into full-scale production. Some still survive in museums or rusted away in old military yards. And the few videos that exist, they're mesmerizing. It looks like a sci-fi creature, crawling slowly through snow like it came from another planet. And with that, we reach the absolute peak of snow machine insanity. From a stubborn little tractor in the 1940s to a Soviet screw tank from the Cold War, this video showed that human creativity has no limits when snow tries to stop us. These aren't just machines, they're legends. Proof that people will build anything to survive, explore, or just get across the ice. Now tell us in the comments, which one of these would you actually try to drive? And which one scared you just hearing how it works? If this is the kind of content you love, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell, and come back next week, because we've got more insane machines that rule snow, ice, and everything extreme. See you in the next video.